Good evening, Purple family. Welcome to another episode of Purple, a Prince podcast. I'm your host, Ronica Crutchfield. On tonight's episode, we have a very special guest. Author Jason Weber has wrote a book, and he is, of course, a member of the Purple family. He wrote a book named Purple Bananas, How Prince Saved Me and Other Selections from the Soundtrack to My Life. Please welcome him to Shades of Purple. Welcome, Jason.
Oh, thank you, Ronica. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, no problem. So I read the book. I finished it on Thursday. Absolutely loved it. And so I just want to get right into it. So what made you decide to write your autobiography? Because that's basically what it is.
Yes. Well, basically what happened is after Prince passed away in 2016, I just was like millions of other people, I was just left completely bereft at his loss.
Right.
And basically what happened is on the day he died, I just started writing about what was going on, what was happening around me. And because I was trying to process my grief and my disbelief at what was going on. So I basically wrote the book as kind of a way to kind of exercise my pain that I felt at losing Prince, and I had to look back at my life to examine all the various ways in which Prince had helped me, or his music had got me through a tough time, or all that. So that's why I wrote the book.
Right. And that's kind of what I figured when I was reading it. You know, in the first part of the book, the very first chapter, you talk about where you were. And of course, we all know, everybody in the Purple family, we recognize your pain. I'm still dealing with it. I still consider myself to still be in mourning in a way, because there's still certain songs of Prince that it's really hard for me to listen to without, almost getting really emotional and crying. I know this is probably like, but for me, for the longest, I couldn't listen to Purple Rain. And I know how some people in the, Prince community feel about that song. But for me, I mean, it was just like, just a song that, I don't know, it just stirs up all these emotions. That guitar solo was just so perfect. And it would just get me. I used to cry before Prince died when I would listen to Purple Rain.
Yes.
So after he died, it was just like, oh my God, it just overwhelmed me completely. And I was really touched, reading about, what going through the motions and the denial and, of not wanting to believe that he was gone. And in your opinion, what do you think happens? Like, do you think that Prince's death could have been preventable? I know a lot of people do. What do you think?
Oh boy. I guess that's the big question. I haven't really done a lot of behind the scenes research into actually what happened with Prince's death. I mean, I know fentanyl was involved. Could it have been prevented? Yeah, probably. But I don't really know enough about the background of the case to really determine how it could have been prevented.
Right.
Prince is somebody who he was obviously in a lot of pain from years of doing the splits and taking out his art through his body. So I just wish to God that it had been prevented. That's all I know.
Yeah, me too. I feel the exact same way. I really feel like we'll never really know, what the circumstances were. And, there's a lot of different conspiracies and all that. But at the end, what gives me comfort is the fact that he is no longer in pain.
That's right.
And that's really, what matters to me the most, because when he was here, he had that cane, starting all the way back from the early 90s.
Yes.
And so it kind of makes me wonder, was he, starting to develop that pain then? When I read a book, one of those books that what is his name? One of those journalists, not Dwayne Tudor or however you say his name, but the other one, the black guy that hung out with him and played basketball with him. Yeah, Touré.
DeRay,
In his latest book, he said that Alan Leeds had told him that he thinks that his pain started back in 1984 during the Purple Rain tour. And he had an accident where he fell a couple of feet from a bathtub.
Okay.
And he hurt his back. And so that the theory is that that's when his pain actually started, was in the 80s. So he kind of had an accident, and kind of in the same vein as Michael Jackson almost, except it wasn't his hair, it was his back. And ever since then, he was supposedly, doing painkillers and everything like that. But anyway, we're getting a little off. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go off on that tangent. Let's get back to your book. I do that sometimes, even in my podcast.
Oh, it's all good.
Thought, and I'll just keep it going. So, but back to your book though. So, give the people some background, our listeners, some background of like who you are and, where you're from and how you grew up. You talk about that in the book, of course, but you go ahead and give your spill on your background.
Sure. Well, I'm adopted. I was adopted in the state of California in the mid-70s. I grew up I've lived in 5 states. I've lived in California, Washington, Idaho, Michigan, and now Ohio. I've been a Prince fan since I was about 14. Diamonds and Pearls was my first Prince album. I grew up in a very, very religious family. There was a lot of abuse, a lot of dysfunction, and Prince's music became something of a respite or a kind of a world away from my reality that I was living in. And his music just really helped to get me through, a really, really painful childhood and messed up adolescence. And so, yeah, my book is about just growing up with Prince, growing up with the music, growing up with, just looking at his music as a guide for my life in many ways.
Right.
And his music was just always there for me, and it really did save my life.
Yeah, literally, it saved your life.
Yes.
Spoilers coming up. I still want you guys to check out Jason's book, but spoilers if you don't like to hear spoilers. But it's such a fascinating. Your story was so fascinating to me. How you relayed like different times of your life with Prince songs, like when you were younger and when you was a teenager, and your father at the time, was being abusive towards you, and you thought about When Doves Cry. That song like popped into your head, and then when you were 18 and you were thinking about hurting yourself, and then the song Anastasia, which is one of my personal favorite songs on Love Sexy. And you talk about how Love Sexy, and it was very much an understated album. I do agree with you on that. And it took me a little while for me to really get into Love Sexy, but now I think it's awesome. I think it's one of his best albums now.
Me too.
And at the time, I just hate that, we didn't really see it, when it was, developed, and the genius behind it. But Love Sexy is just such a wonderful album. And I'm so glad that you had Prince. You had something that you could go to for, it was almost like he was your therapist in a way.
Very much so.
And I just think that is just so, so poignant. Words escape me. It's just that when I was reading your book, I was just kind of fascinated with some of your stories. And you were very candid about different, aspects of your personal life, the different girls that you dated, and the different Prince songs that came up in your mind. That I was curious that you didn't bring up Erotic City.
Oh, well, Erotic City was, it did feature in certain times of my life, but not when I was a teenager. I was
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, it was like that. There's the scene where I'm behind the skating rink and with my first girlfriend, and we're making out, and I'm worried about oh my gosh, am I committing a sin? And so I had Little Red Corvette going through my head. You know, it was Saturday night. I guess that makes it all right. And
right.
Yep.
And I guess it was it was. She made you stop, so it wasn't quite all right.
Oh no, no. Consent is sexy. So
you're right. Exactly. Consent is a very sexy. Good answer. And so I like how eventually, your parents, they were first very much against Prince, and I think, like most parents, they had good reason to be, because of his sexual content and and his lyrics, and and then like he's just this light-skinned black man, kind of dressed up as woman with the mascara and the heels, and I mean he was different looking. He was different looking, and his music was like you couldn't put Prince in a genre. Like the genre was Prince. Like that was the genre. You see, and so I think that's what really helped him to stand out, and that was all, of course, purposely done by Prince. We would come to find out later. But at the time, me, you, and other Purple family members, we were just so taken with it because he was so different. He was so fascinating, and that was enough for us. And then, of course, the music was wonderful. You know, so it was just like, when I talk to people that don't understand Prince or don't get him, I'm just like, do you have no taste? Like, are you not paying attention? Because literally, this man could play any genre of music and did. So I mean, it's just like where your antennas at? Like get with it.
Exactly.
And but I liked how eventually your parents did, go with you to the Jam of the Year tour, and how they loved it. And of course, that's all they needed to do, was go to the tour. So talk more about that time where you talk about in your book, of course, but elaborate on like how that made you feel that your parents were finally, kind of understanding why you liked Prince as much as you did.
Well, by the time I was a teenager, my parents kind of realized that, that I was different from, most other people out there. And they just realized it's like, well, we kind of got to go with the flow on this one. And they didn't, when I asked my dad to get me tickets for the Prince concert, which I did because at the time I didn't have a credit card, so I had to use his credit card to buy the concert tickets. He said, do you mind if I go? Me and your mom go? And I said, sure. I think that's great. But I was nervous because, this is back in the Jam of the Year of 98 when Prince still he still used language, and, he still sang songs like Sexy MF and Darling Nikki and
because I know that was Faith, he did, love cussing Prince.
Yeah. So I was a little bit nervous about, my parents, being exposed to all that. But no, they ended up coming out with me and my dates, and it was wonderful. It was just great. To this day, my mom still talks about that show, and it was wonderful to have them there, to share that with them.
That's great. That's such a wonderful experience, because I am so jealous. I did not get to see Prince in concert, and I could have just like kicked myself over and over for that. And so it's refreshing to hear, other people talking about their experiences seeing him in concert, because now I'm going to have to literally wait till I leave the earth before I can maybe get a chance to see him.
Yes.
And which, I mean, like I said, that's a whole nother thing, but I'm so happy that, they were able to see like, what the fuss was about. And also another part of your book that I really, I liked it because it was good. Your book is really a page turner. Like, I really want to encourage my listeners to really check your book out. It's on Amazon. So please, please, please get the hard copy. Okay. Get this man some money. Okay. Get the hard copy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. That Selena girl.
Selena, yeah.
That you dated briefly. There are still people like her in the Prince community. I mean, quiet as it's kept. And but yeah, when I was reading that, I was just like, wow, yeah, she's really out there. And then later, so you said that, you know, she stopped I wonder what made her finally stop liking Prince. Did she ever tell you?
No, Selena told me that she told me once in an email about a year after we stopped dating that she wasn't into Prince anymore. She was into drugs and heavy metal. And that's exactly what she told me. Yeah, she just was very, she just went from one obsession to another. And that's just kind of how she was. I don't know what's, last I heard from Selena, she was in Nevada somewhere and living on disability. But
wow.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, Selena was an interesting cat. She really was.
Yeah, when she was just sitting there watching VH1, and I'm just like, did she literally just sit there on the bed for hours at a time and didn't move? That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. And then, well, what else was nuts is that the only time that she moved from watching VH1 is at the time Prince had the commercial for Crystal Ball was being shown on VH1 every once in a while, and Selena would write down the exact date and time that the commercial aired.
Oh my God.
It was, and I asked her, it's like, what are you keeping track of that for? And she didn't really give me an answer. She just looked at me and said, just because I want to have every piece of information I can about Prince. I'm like, okay, I'll buy that.
Okay. That really has nothing to do with Prince though. That no. He doesn't control that. So wow. Yeah, she was really out there.
She was.
They've got a pill for that. I'm sure of it. There's a pill for everything now. That story there was just nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Prince. Don't get me wrong. I love him, but I don't think about him to that minuscule point to where he just takes over everything. Now, my husband might agree or disagree on that, but for the most part, yeah, that's just nuts.
Yeah, Selena was interesting because as I say in the book, you know, I finally had a Prince girlfriend, and I wanted a Prince girlfriend for so long. You know, somebody who was growing into Prince, and you know, it's the old adage: be careful what. And I got it. So.
And those people are hard to find, you know. So I understand why you wanted to share, you know, your love of Prince with someone, because, you know, we're kind of few and far between, you know. Yes, so I understood that. And luckily for me, though, in my case, my husband, he was a Prince fan before, you know, we even got together, but he wasn't as big of a Prince fan. But now he's almost there with me. He's finding me unreleased music. He's, you know, anything that Prince related that he'll know that I like, he'll get it, you know. So he's just kind of there with me. And that's kind of good, you know.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, so the person that you're with now, are they into Prince?
Well, I'm not with anybody right now. My last relationship with my kid's mom, she wasn't really into Prince, but she respected Prince, but she wasn't really into him. Right. When I was writing Purple Bananas, she you know, I was kind of driving her crazy with as much Prince as I was listening to when I was writing the book. And she's like, she would be like, are we listening to Prince again? And I'm like, girl, I'm writing a book about Prince. I have to listen to him in order to keep the creative juices going, you know?
Right.
And, she was getting burned out on Prince, unfortunately, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, her loss.
Yes. Her loss.
Yes, but a song that you talked about quite a bit in your book was The Love We Make. And that is such a beautiful song. Oh, and yes. It's one of my favorites as well. Is it on Emancipation? Is it on that album?
Yes, it's on disc 3 of Emancipation. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you talked about, emancipation. Now, of course, in Prince's world, emancipation was, as you talked about. Now, another thing that I liked about your book is not only were you telling your story, your life story, but it was also like you were also going through Prince's discography as well. Yes. And I thought that was a really, really nice touch, because for people that are kind of newer to Prince, who may not know, some of these songs or some of these albums, it would be, it's like an introduction, because sometimes, new people in particular, they want to go right to Purple Rain, or they want to go right to, Diamonds and Pearls, the more well-known albums. But albums like Emancipation, while it's not as well known in the Prince community, it's very much a valued album. And for Prince, it meant, it was like you said, his love song to Maite, because you could tell in a lot of the songs, Sleep Around, particularly, is the song that kind of stands out to me, that he's talking about, going through her journal and reading her, her journal entries and all that. Like this was a time where he was really most in love with her. And, they were having the baby, and then, tragedy struck, unfortunately, with that. But Emancipation, you made me want to go back and listen to that album. I'm just like, I really need to go back and listen to that album again. And I do album reviews on the podcast. And right now I'm up to Diamonds and Pearls, actually. That's going to be my next album review. Oh, beautiful. And I've been listening to Diamonds and Pearls. And I got a beef with you about that, because you said that you did not like the song Diamonds and Pearls, and that's like my favorite one on the album.
Well, it's not that I didn't like the song. I just thought that there were other songs on the album that were stronger. But no, I do like Diamonds and Pearls. I think that it's I have to be in the mood for it. But yeah, it's I love Cream. I love Get Off. I love Willing and Able, Strollin', Daddy Pop. Yeah, I do love the album.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that Willing and Able sounds like it could have been a song for Aretha Franklin? Because every time I hear it, I hear Aretha Franklin.
With the way Prince sings this, yeah, I could totally hear that. Absolutely.
Yeah, so every time I hear it, I'm just like, is this a song that maybe he tried to give to Aretha? Because I do know that he admired Aretha. Yes. That was one of, his musical heroes. Yep. And so that song just sounds like an Aretha Franklin song. And that's another thing that I loved about Prince and his songwriting, is that he could sound like anybody.
Yes.
Anybody. It was just like total genius. He could sound like Aretha Franklin. He could sound like Curtis Mayfield. Because I know you've heard Welcome to America and that album. And he sounds like on Ready to Die, or is it Time to Die? Is it Ready to Die? Time to Die. One of those. I can't remember the exact title now.
Yeah.
But he sounds just like Curtis Mayfield, just like him. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, this is incredible. And a lot of people talk shit about that album. But I liked Welcome to America. What did you think of Welcome to America?
I liked it as well. I did. I think that I didn't think it was as strong as some of the other albums he was putting out around 2010, but I did. But yeah, I did like it very much. Absolutely.
I liked it. And now the one song on there that I thought an earlier version was better was When She Comes. Yes. Now the one that is on, is it Hit and Run Phase 2? That version, I like that version better than the one that's on Welcome to America. But other than that, I like every song on there, and I always try to encourage people that are first listening to Prince. Like, don't go to the, of course you can get to the, more well-known albums, but there's some hidden gems and a lot of his later work as well. And you have to really just, be willing to open your mind and look for it. Even on 2010, people talk shit about that album, but there's some good songs on there, and not just Lay It Down.
Absolutely.
Like, I like the one,
Sticky Like Glue,
Walk in the Sand, and of course, what is that song? Soul Song.
Okay,
Soul Song, that one. love that song. I mean, you just really have to just kind of go with them and look for those, those hidden gems. So, what are some of your? I mean, this is, I guess you could call this a generic question, but since we're talking about Prince, it just makes sense. So, what are some of your favorite albums and some of your favorite songs?
Well, let's see. Prince did not put out a single bad album. I think he put out some albums. I think he put out some albums that were stronger than others. But every single album that he put out has something wonderful on it. And
I agree.
So that's why choosing my favorite albums is a little bit tough because there's just so much bounty out there. It's just wonderful. But I love Dirty Mind. I love how stripped down it is. I love how dirty it is.
It sounds like a demo.
Yes, it does, and that's what I loved about it. It's so raw, it's so funky, and just I loved just how bare bones it is. It's just So I love songs like Party Up. I love Uptown. I grew up listening to a lot of punk rock, so I love Sister because Sister is a great little punk song. I love the Batman soundtrack. I really love the Come album, which is getting ready to come out on vinyl in September.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that because I loved the Come album from '94. I loved the Gold Experience. Every single song on there is a banger.
Yeah, that's my husband's favorite. Other than he likes that album and he likes Prince's first album, For You.
Oh, I love
which I think a lot of people don't really go back and listen to that. But that whole album, I like every song on that album.
Me too. That album is a banger. It really is.
It is. It really is an understated banger. It really is.
Yep. So I think that's you could spend all day just analyzing each Prince album and just taking stock of how many different wonderful songs there are on each album. It's just great.
Absolutely. I love Dark on the Come album.
Oh yes.
And then on Crystal Ball he did kind of a remix, So Dark.
Yes.
And I just like just things like that. I mean, just Dark is just one of those. I mean, he did blues like he was like a blues singer.
Yes, he did.
And on The Vault, the album, you were just like, that's kind of a throwaway album. He has a blues song on there called Five Women, which is fire. Fire. I love Five Women.
Yeah, me too. And that was great.
So, I mean.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit because. Okay. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna.
You were saying.
I was just gonna comment on The Vault. I really liked the Old Friends for Sale, and I really liked Don't Talk to Strangers, which of course was from the I think that was from the Girl 6 soundtrack originally.
I believe so.
Don't talk, but it was also on The Vault. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No problem. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about another part of your book where you talk about your time in government when you were basically the spokesperson for 2 different mayors. And then you went on to do some work with, now I had never heard of this group. I actually had to ask my brother about it. He had, but I had never heard of the clowns.
Insane Clown Posse.
And ICP. I had never heard of that group. So forgive me. And so when I was reading it, I'm just like, I've never heard, and I'm not, of course I'm not versed in Detroit rappers other than Eminem.
Right.
So I was like, oh, so that whole part of your book was really interesting. But do you want to briefly talk about, some of your non-Prince related things that you talked about in your book?
Sure, absolutely. I spent a couple years working in local government. I spent about a year working for as the spokesman for Mayor Carty Finkbeiner in Toledo, Ohio. And then I spent 2 years as the personal aide to Mayor Gary Lightsell in Dayton, Ohio. How I got those jobs was kind of a discombobulated story. Some of it was luck, and also I had a background in journalism, which I was able to use with some leverage to get me a communications job in government. And yeah, that was interesting. When I worked for the mayor of Toledo, he was quite known nationally for his temper and his abusive behavior. And if you Google him, you'll find some interesting stories about the guy.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so I worked for him for about a year.
Very, very stressful. Very, very stressful from the way you described it in your book. Like, I was like, oh my God, he sounds awful.
Yeah, it was so bad. I got addicted to Xanax actually when I was working for him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was working for him was really tough. The second mayor I worked for, Mayor Lightsell, he was a gentleman and he was great. I didn't really like living in Dayton that much, but I lived there for a couple of years, and it was okay. But then I got a job working for the Insane Clown Posse as their publicist, and yeah, that was an interesting little 5 years of my life.
Yeah, I could tell. You also seem to have learned a lot when you were with the Insane Clown Posse, as far as like, you were talking about working on their box sets, their CD box sets, and setting all that up, their legacy recordings and all that. And I found that to be fascinating because, like, hey, they could use people like you for the Prince Estate right now, because we still waiting on that special deluxe. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the vinyls that they're putting out. That's great. But I'm waiting on that special deluxe edition, bro. I don't know about you, but I'm waiting on the next one.
So
they keep saying that, I don't know. What do you think it's going to be? They keep saying it's either going to be Diamonds and Pearls, or I don't know. What do you think?
It'll probably be Diamonds and Pearls, because that was such a huge seller.
Right.
So it wouldn't surprise me if it was Diamonds and Pearls. But I did send in my resume to Paisley Park last year. They had a job opening for a communications specialist, and I figured, well, I've worked for 2 mayors and I worked for the Insane Clown Posse, so maybe I'm qualified to work for the Prince Estate. And I didn't hear anything back from them, unfortunately, but I did apply. So,
well, hey, there's that. There's something. They need people like you. They really do, because I don't know the people that they got working over there now, but I mean, I feel like, especially this year, it's kind of been a bust to me.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't really moved stuff like they did in previous years, And so I don't know what they're going to do next year for the 40th anniversary of Purple Rain, but I think they really need to do something spectacular. Much more than what they did this year, which was nothing. So at the end of your book, you talk about Paisley Park, and you went out there and talk some more about Paisley Park and your experience going out there.
Well, Paisley Park was a pilgrimage that I had to make. I was going through, I got laid off from the Insane Clown Posse, and I had to move to Toledo because it was the only place I could find a job. And Paisley Park was something that I just had to do. I couldn't really afford it, but I had to go out there for me, and I had to go out there and pay my respects to Prince. Yeah. And so in February of 20, let's see, what year would that been? 2018, I believe. No, it would have been 2019. Excuse me. Yes, I went out there to Paisley Park. It was on March 1st of 2019, and so 3/19. I remember it well.
3/19. Okay.
3/19. Yep. So, yeah, and so I went out to Paisley Park. I got the Ultimate Tour, and it's a magical place. You can really feel the creative presence of Prince in that place, and
Wow.
it's breathtaking. You know, you can just feel just the creative energy that he brought to the world just permeates Paisley Park, and
Wow.
it was a really wonderful experience, and I really want to go back again. So,
Yeah, my plan is to go next year. So
oh, nice.
we hope to get out there. Me and my husband, we hope to get out there during the summer months because being from the South, I stay in Arkansas. So I'm not used to like bitterly cold weather.
Right.
So I already knew, and my birthday is in November. So I would have loved to have gone, closer to my birthday. But I know it's going to be cold and snowing up there in November. So not
When is
going then.
What day is your birthday?
November 4th.
Okay, mine's on November 18th. So,
Oh, Scorpio.
yep, fellow Scorpio.
Fellow Scorpio. That's wonderful.
Yep.
So, how old are you going to be in November this year?
I'll be 48.
48. Okay.
Yep.
You still holding on to them 40s. I'm
Yep.
going to get into my 40s. I'll be 40.
Right on.
Right on. Okay. Well, what else would you like the people to know about your book, about yourself, what you got going on right now?
Well, what I'm trying to do with Purple Bananas is I'm trying to take it to the next level with a film adaptation.
Oh.
I'm trying to turn it into a movie. Last year, now my day job is I'm a journalist for the Toledo Blade newspaper in Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, I interviewed the actor Anthony Michael Hall, who came to Toledo he was hosting a screening of 16 Candles. And when I interviewed him, it turns out he's a big fan of Prince. So I gave Anthony Michael Hall a copy of my book. And a couple of weeks go by and I get an email from him and he says, "Dude, I really like your book. Let's talk about turning this into a movie or a series or something." So Anthony Michael Hall was basically thinks that my book is good enough to be a movie.
I think it is too. Yeah.
Thank you. So what I'm doing right now is I'm working with Anthony Michael Hall to try to get a director on board to help me adapt the book into a screenplay.
Turn it into a screenplay. Okay.
I reached out to Spike Lee and Questlove, actually, because I think that Spike Lee would love my book. And I think Questlove would too. And I reached out to Spike Lee to see if he would be interested in collaborating with me on a screenplay, and never heard anything back from him. But
okay.
But you never know. So so Spike, if you're hearing this, get back to me. I would love to work with you on this.
Yes, absolutely. Spike Lee, Questlove. I'm surprised Questlove hasn't already wrote a book about Prince, as much as he, talks about him all the time, and his
right?
experiences and all that. He's like a mega Prince fan. So
yes, he is.
Where's his book at?
Right. So as a matter of fact, I actually sent Purple Bananas to Questlove's publisher to see if they were interested in publishing a second edition of it, but they passed.
Oh.
But yeah, I did.
Don't give up.
Yeah, but I did reach out to Questlove, and I asked him if he'd be interested in publishing a second edition of the book, which has a new ending chapter and a new introduction. And his editor said that they admired my book, but they had to pass on doing anything with it. So, but
and they didn't give you a reason why?
No, they didn't. They just said thanks, but we're not interested. So, but it's okay.
That's just one person. Yeah. Keep looking for more people.
Yeah, I will. And I know that something might happen with the Spike Lee thing, because again, Spike and Prince were best friends.
Yeah.
And my book is very reverent, and my book is a Valentine to Prince. So even if Spike can't direct it, or if he can't get involved with it and everything, I'll bet you he knows somebody who could.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So so that's why I'm holding out hope for that something might happen with Spike Lee.
Well, I hope so too, Purple Brother. I got my fingers crossed for you, and whatever I can do, once this gets out, it's going to be on Facebook and it's going to be on all these different platforms. Like I said, it's going to be on Apple and Google and Amazon. And so if somebody, Spike, once again, if you're listening, please, 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 please get in touch with our brother Jason here, because he's got something here. Like I said, that book was a page turner for me, and I'm a librarian by trade. And so
cool.
I'm kind of harsh when it comes to books. You know, you really have to catch my attention. And I knew, of course, anything dealing with Prince is going to catch my attention automatically. But, you know, at the same time, though, some books, even about Prince, can really, you know, like those Dwayne Tudor, I think I'm mispronouncing his last name, but those big books about those recording sessions, I've only been able to get through the Purple Rain one. The Sign of the Times one, I'm still having to keep starting back over because, I mean, it's just so detailed. Like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, they're wonderful books. Have you read them?
I read the one on Purple Rain, just like you. Yes.
Yeah, but I just can't seem to get to that Sign of the Times one, and that is such a prolific era for Prince. And so that's why it's like 700 pages. But I'm just like, oh, Lord, I'm just going to have to go back to it at some point because I'm just trying to figure out, like, I also do book reviews on my podcast, and I can't figure out how I'm even going to do a book review on those. Like, I mean, they're so detailed. And he's supposedly working on another one. So I don't know if he's going backward or forward. But I would like to, for him to go a little backward into, if he could, if they're still around, like the For You and Prince, those sessions, and Dirty Mind. Oh, yeah. I would love to hear more of those if possible. What era of Prince do you like? What is your favorite as far as like his aesthetic? And, you know, because, you know, with each era, he had a different look, you know, a different style. And that's another thing I loved about him. He was always willing to change up his style. So what is your favorite Prince era?
My favorite aesthetic, I know it's kind of a cliche, but I got to go with Purple Rain, from 1999 to Purple Rain. You know, where he had the trench coat, and you know, he had the perm, the lace and everything. I really liked
classic.
Yeah, you know, I just really liked that classic that classic Prince motif. But when I was a teenager, and I was into Prince, that's when he was doing the hip hop influence of his career, where he was like he had like the gun mic, he had the chain hat. Yeah, you know, I loved that too. Just because I loved how brazen it was. It was certainly a lot harsher than I mean, he was still wearing lace and heels and everything, but it had a certain toughness that I liked. That's but yeah, Purple Rain is still my favorite.
Yeah, a manliness, you know, about him.
Yes.
Yeah, I love Purple Rain as well. But my favorite aesthetic's got to be Love's Sexy, because I love the long hair and the pencil thin mustache. Like, I just really thought that was just the ish. And I loved, you know, his character Gemini during the Batman era. And I mean, he still looked good with all that makeup and all that. I mean, he really rocked that whole thing out. And I wonder why he didn't do the soundtrack. I know he wasn't brought back for Batman Returns soundtrack, and I always wondered why. But, you know, at the time, you know, he had Diamonds and Pearls and, you know, Love Symbols. So he had all that stuff going on. So he probably wouldn't have been able to. But I always think, because the Batman album, that was my introduction to Prince. On my podcast, on my very first episode, I talk about how I got introduced to Prince when I was in, you're, like I said, you're about 8 years older than me. So you were already into Prince by the time I was in kindergarten, and we would be on the playground. There was this, you know, that song, Party Man. No, not Party Man, Bat Dance. Yeah. Bat Dance was out. And we would be on the playground just doing, ooh, yeah. I want to bust that body. Didn't know, 5, 6 years old, not knowing what we said. Had my mother heard, she would have slapped me in my face. Right. And we were just out on the playground just singing this.
Oh, that's wonderful.
that was my introduction to Prince. So, and since I heard that, I have just been like, who is this person? And then I heard Cream and Diamonds and Pearls on the radio.
Yes.
And I asked my father was a Prince fan. He liked Prince. And so he told me, oh, that's Prince, And then after that, it was just, I was just in love after that. So, talk about briefly that first spark, like when Prince first came into your worldview and how you felt.
Well, I remember seeing him in the 1999 era on TV. I think it was like on Solid Gold or something. And I just remember being a little boy and watching him perform and just being mesmerized because I couldn't figure him out. I was like, all right, is he black? Is he white? Is he boy? Is he girl? What is he? And I just found that so exciting, because I could not figure this guy out. And the other thing that I liked is the fact that he made my parents so aggravated because for the same reason. Yeah. I mean, he Prince offended a lot of our parents. And
yes.
So yeah, they were just like, oh, who's this guy? Who's this girl? But yeah, I just remember that first spark when I saw him about 83. It was before Purple Rain. But I wasn't allowed to listen to him during the Purple Rain era, so I kind of missed out on that. But when Sign of the Times came out in 87, that's when my parents let us watch a little bit of MTV. So I got to watch some videos from the Sign of the Times era, like I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, stuff like that. And I just remember just watching him and just mesmerized.
Right.
I just couldn't get over how assured he was on stage and how he could play any instruments but yeah, that's I'll never forget that first spark.
Yeah, right. I mean, he just exuded confidence and how he walked, how he looked, like he just knew he was a shit, and he was, and I mean that was attractive to I think both men and women. Every woman wanted to be with him and men wanted to imitate him. You talk about that in your book as well. You talked about how you were in the mirror when you were 17 years old trying to mimic him, Yes. So, I mean, that just goes to show you like his power and the fact that, he just has such an influence over, his friends, as he liked to call them, not fans.
Right.
But he was just the man. So
we
got roughly about, I would say another 5-10, I want to say 10 minutes, but that might be cutting it a little short. So I'm going to say like maybe 8 minutes.
Okay.
So in these last 8 minutes, what do you want to talk about? Your last thoughts on Prince and, what you got going on right now. You talked about the movie. Happy birthday to your daughter, Kat, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
I saw that. So what all of y'all done today for that, or yesterday?
We went to the zoo, and we just hung out there at the zoo. We went out for a nice little dinner. Nothing much. It was really low key, but it was wonderful.
That's great.
Kat doesn't. Kat's not really a huge Prince fan. She knows that Daddy loves Prince a lot. But she knows who Prince is, and she certainly respects him. Like I can show her, right. I can hold up a picture and say, "So who's this?" And she goes, "That's Prince." And she knows what time it is.
Right. Just about kind of like my daughter. She has. I mean, our children really don't have a choice when it comes to Prince. So they're going to at least know him and acknowledge him. And my daughter, she's a little bit older. She's 19. And they were doing a showing of Purple Rain here in Little Rock, where I live, back in February. And of course, I've seen Purple Rain 1,000 times, but I've never seen it on the big screen.
Right. So
I really wanted to, and it was at a concession stand that I work at part-time, this movie theater. I work in the concession stand. And so they were like, everybody, of course, was like, you're going to want to go watch it because concessions was getting ready to close. And so my daughter came up there and she watched it with me. So, of course, I couldn't cry at the end when he starts playing Purple Rain because I didn't want my daughter to see me crying. So, I just kind of held it in, and and then because she's such a smart ass, she's like, oh, I like Michael Jackson better. Oh, whatever.
Oh.
She just said that she likes Prince. She just likes to just
She's your daughter. She likes to mess with you.
Yeah, she just likes to mess with me. But
oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So, well, Jason, like I said, we are almost at an hour. So, thank you so much for doing this. This was my first interview for the podcast, and you really
did a wonderful
enjoyed
job.
it.
And thank you. You did a wonderful job, Ronica, and thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Jason. And when you get that deal, which you're gonna get, please come back on, and maybe we can do something. Go live, or maybe I'll have my YouTube channel by then, which like I said, I'm still working on that. So definitely keep in touch, and let me know how everything is going with you and your family and the whole nine. And blessings, brother. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. And let me tell you something. I am going to get that deal, and when I do, you'll be the first show I go on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your night. And for my listeners out there, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned. I got that Diamonds and Pearls review coming up for you. And until then, peace and be wild, and may you live to see the dawn. Bye.